but thanks for listening. Yeah. Hello and welcome, everybody, to We Say Things That Don't Mean Anything. That's not how it goes. Episode 243, SUNSfan here with Cinderin. And we have a doozy of an episode for you guys. Real doozy.
Imagine listening to the jingle and then you do a bad jingle after the jingle.
Yeah. What you guys don't know,
listen to it once.
the intro is AI. I can't actually sing for shit, so...
Yes.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. How are you doing, Mr. Cinderman?
You would probably believe it, too.
Yeah, true.
It's so believable at this point. I'm good, Shannon. I got a haircut.
Good job.
That's it. That's sick. I really should have done it probably a month or two ago, but you know, sometimes you just delay things.
I don't even
Now I got
remember
a
your...
haircut. Now I probably got it a bit too short, but you know, it's okay.
I think it looks great, Cinderin.
You're just saying that to be
No.
nice. That's okay.
I used to have a buzz cut. Did you know that? Do you know what a buzz cut is?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I like it was in middle school. I wanted to shave my head during the summer just to see what it was like, and my dad forbade it. So I got a buzz cut, and then he was like, "Oh, actually looks pretty good." He was afraid that I might have a deformed looking head because somebody dropped me on my head as a child, and I broke bricks apparently, like a brick floor. It cracked it.
What?
Yeah, it was.
This explains so much.
An uncle, if you want to call him that, was holding me by my legs, and they just dropped me and thud, and there was a crack, and I was fine, or so they thought.
Damn.
Anyway, let's get started.
Dropped you would have been like the greatest in the world at something.
That's right. Probably. I would be a professional gymnast.
You would have been get left in CS.
That's right. Well, no, that's left. Anyway, let's begin the episode with a SUNSfan recommends. I was going to do this last week, but the episode was going quite long. I would like to recommend for everyone a movie that no one has heard of. Okay,
but before you do that,
okay,
I would like to shout out our patron Shannon.
Oh my God!
Because lest we forget,
that was close.
Yes, of every episode, always.
Wow. Well, that's
until
not true.
The end of time.
When we didn't have a Patreon, then we didn't do that.
Nobody remembers those days. That was like pre-COVID, which never existed.
True.
By the way. Just like Cleopatra and the pyramids. All right. I'll do the first half this time. How
okay.
about that? Thank you, as always, to everybody who is a patron for the show. We really appreciate it. And of course, you guys keep the show running. And a special thanks to the In-Bruges tier. Lakers in 5. Amish Toaster in before Pullman Shield is brought in as a tier 5 neutral, but it's just the same stats as the OG. Valve, please give Earthspirit vision on his remnants as a facet. That sounds interesting. Once you go bidet, you don't go back. Captain Broccoli, STGC Daniel. Mix those two together. Captain Daniel. Piran won Belchoff and took the kids. Mr. I Love the NBA segment, the episode where Chuck learns how to retire from Dota pros. Pepperballs, T-Coil, and Yatoro does it again. Cinderin.
Yeah, so Charles Barkley, I wasn't planning to do an NBA segment, but I'll do a quick one here. I think I mentioned that he was maybe retiring. I don't remember. But he went on national, not national TV. He went on a TV show and he said he was retiring. And then now, a couple weeks later, apparently he can't get out of his contract. He has to stick with it to get that $200 million. Poor guy.
Oh,
so I guess he's going to stick around.
Right.
Thank you also to Vlad. Let's have Puppy on the podcast. You should tweet at Puppy and let him know that you'd like him to be on the podcast. Otherwise, I doubt he would want to come on the podcast. He really hates Cinderin. That's just a side note, though. Also, thank you to Disco Farm D, the Mega Pope, Zan Xavier, Shark TM, Janie, Dop, Wooden Aftertaste, Anonymous, and there's a town in Canada called Dildo, and their mascot is named Captain Dildo Mr. Niebling.
All right, this is a search incognito. Let's see. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Something tells me you're not gonna find it right away.
Yeah. It's a fisherman. Or no, it's a captain, I guess. It's it is a captain because he's called Captain Dildo, duh. But it's he's wearing a yellow He's wearing what looks to be yellow rain pants and a yellow rain jacket and a yellow hat, and then he has a pipe in his mouth, and then he has a full-grown beard in gray. It's really... Look it up. You need to show it now.
Okay, well, you're going to have to send me the link, because they can see my browser, after all.
Okay. I'll send you a link. This is great. This is good content, Shannon, I promise.
Yep, I would hope so.
I'm going to show the world Captain Dildo here.
Okay. Visit site. Very good. Captain Dildo at your service. That thing is actually quite terrifying. I won't lie. That is something else. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Niebling.
That's good. I like it.
Could be used as a dildo, I guess. Okay, moving on. SUNSfan recommends a movie that no one has heard of. That is not breaking box office records. It's called Deadpool and Wolverine. Usually it's not something that I will do, which is, well, first of all, I like to be a hipster of sorts. I don't like to like movies that are really good, Cinderin. You know, I like to like the shitty movies that nobody's heard of. But Ryan Reynolds is a fucking genius. This guy is incredible. Hugh Jackman is awesome. Rated R movies are amazing. It just feels more organic. You can get away with so much more. It feels less like it's for kids, which I really enjoy. And this movie, I loved all the Deadpool movies. I loved Logan, which is the last Marvel movie that Hugh Jackman was in. But they revived him in a way, and I thought the way that they did it was cool, and just extremely good writing, extremely good dialogue, and I was laughing all the way. I mean, I don't get to go to the theater all that often anymore, but this was definitely worth admission. So if you haven't seen it, and it's something that I mean, again, I'm not a big superhero movie guy. In fact, I've come on here and I've ranted many a time. If it's PG-13, it's very likely I will not like it, just because it feels like it's made for kids, which is fine.
This is
is
funny to me, because this movie, I think, has been advertised quite aggressively in Denmark, and I was like, the premise of it, of these characters together and everything, I felt like, okay, this one is just going to be one of those, you know, this, you know what I mean? It's one of those, you combine things together because they're both popular, and then they become less than the sum of both parts. They just become worse, both of them. So I genuinely, when I heard of this movie and I saw the premise, I was like, okay, this is probably just going to be like average at best. So I'm surprised that it's not only you who likes it, by the way. It's got pretty good ratings.
Yeah, I'm very partial to Ryan Reynolds in general, but him and Hugh Jackman are really good friends. That's why they have good chemistry on camera. So everything just feels organic. And Nikki, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but Nikki is a hardcore, or was at least, hardcore comic fan. So she goes in really deep with like the lore, and there's some stuff that happened in this one that she was literally gasping, and there's videos of other people in theaters like just showing these shots of them gasping, because it's something they never thought they would get to finally see translated from the comics, which is really cool. When she gasped, I'm like, oh, this must be a big deal. Not a big deal to me, because I have no fucking idea what's going on. But and I think there's so many references in the movie that are above my head, but I can still appreciate them to a degree, because I know that there's depth to it. Like Nikki was telling me, I forget what the actual saying is, but there was a joke that he made. This is not a spoiler. He was just fighting Ryan Reynolds' character, Deadpool, was fighting some random guy. Obviously, the random guy's not going to kill him. Right? And he made a reference, and I forget the exact phrase, unfortunately, but it's only something that people that worked on a movie set would know, which Nikki has, right? Or at least been in that industry. So basically saying, you're never going to kill me because you're this type of person. It's like a one-day hire, whatever term they use for that. It's just little things like that, just, makes it feel very fun. I enjoyed it. So would recommend for people. Enjoy.
Did you say you're never going to kill me because you're an extra, or what?
No, it's not. So an extra is someone, they can be there multiple days, but it's somebody you hire for one. It's like a 1 day. I forget. Maybe that is the name of it, is a 1 day. I can't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a specific term for it. Anywho, moving on. to Dota. So, Elite League has finished. It finished. Did it? Yeah, it finished last week. So we didn't
August
go over
4th?
because it finished 4 days
It wasn't
ago.
over.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was getting close to finishing up. So this had a Swiss stage. Had a lot of well, it had some good teams, but a lot of them backed out. So it was kind of a mixed bag, as it were. And the interesting thing about this tournament is that there was no official English coverage, which this originally was considered a tier 1 event, but after these teams backed out, it became a tier 2, but still very unconventional, very unusual. And
obviously some casters did pick up the games and cover them, but yeah, it's surprising that a tournament of this magnitude does not have English coverage officially.
Yeah, I know Cap was casting with at times Gork and Arteezy, and then I know Arcryptic and Zequig. I can never say his fucking name. Zequil. He needs to change his name.
Squirrel.
They were fucking no-lifing this shit. It was crazy. I'd wake up, they'd be casting for like 10, 12 hours. Absurd. But that's really cool that people would just pick that up.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a pros and cons because it's not official coverage, but then anybody can do it. So it's kind of fun that people can just, do it, and they're appreciated for their work. They're getting good viewership. So I think that's cool every now and then for sure. And then the tournament itself, Cinderman, what do you want to talk about? Where do you want to start? The Swiss stage?
Sure. I mean, let's just start with the Swiss. So this had 16 teams. I guess notable teams were probably OG, Liquid, Beast Coast, Shopify, Boom, Execration, Nouns, Heroic, Mouse Sports, One Win. And aside from that, I would say it's more tier 2-ish. Arguably, some of the teams I also mentioned are tier 2, but it depends on like your definition. Whatever. They're present in a lot of big tournaments and do quite well a lot of the time. So, yeah, that was the Swiss. Obviously, in Swiss, half the teams advance and half the teams get knocked out with the way this is played. And as you know, 2 teams will be 3-0, 3 teams will be 3-1, and 3 teams will be 3-2. So the teams that just went through easily were OG and Liquid. They just won all their 3 series. I mean, I say easily. There were 2 1s in there, but they still, got the job done. And then the 3-1 teams were One Win, Beast Coast, and Shopify Rebellion. We should mention, by the way, Shopify, we've talked about on the podcast a couple of weeks ago that they changed their roster around a bit. Saberlight is back, and Pakaz is playing carry. And I personally was excited to see how well this team is going to do. This is obviously just the first showing really at a LAN with their new team. But I keep Pakaz in extremely high regard. And that was those 3, yeah. And then the next 3 were Boom, Execration, and Nouns. Barely made it through with their 3-2 score. So then every other team was, of course, eliminated. And then we go into a playoff stage immediately of 8. Or sorry, my mistake. We go into a round robin. And the round robin is only for seeding. So that's why this is a bit special, because nobody gets eliminated from the round robin. So
a lot of before we get in, what do you think about that? Going from a Swiss to a round robin where there's no eliminations? Because I found that kind of weird.
Yeah.
Feels like the games, they're not meaningless, but they have less meaning, right?
Yeah. I mean, as you could tell, I kind of immediately jumped to the playoffs because that's just my natural instinct after a Swiss, is that the Swiss kind of did the round robin part, if you know what I mean.
In a way, but you're not able to play a lot of the other teams because it's Swiss format, right?
Of course. Like, the things can obviously move, and they did this time. Teams did move around, so it's not like the round robin did nothing. But it's also a matter of, logistics. The tournament wants to generate a lot of games because it makes money, right? They want the teams to play, they want the viewers to watch something. And if you only do Swiss into single elim, for example, which CS events do a lot of the time, I don't think that's something we're going to see in Dota a lot. So, but yeah, the round robin was interesting instead of going straight to double elim. But this just makes for a longer tournament with more games. So, the round robin stage, some things stay the same. So as I said, OG and Liquid finished in the 3-0 bracket in the Swiss, and they also finish in uppers in the round robin. Liquid had a pretty bad scoreline though, with 9 and 8 in games. So they just barely scooped by, and they actually had to win a tiebreaker, I believe, against Boom to start in that uppers, if I'm not mistaken here. Or they had a better score. Never mind. They won. Am I?
Yeah, they had the same game, like win to loss, but it's not the same series. Win and loss.
Oh wait, never mind. Okay. I'm psyching myself out by looking at the score line in a different way. Forget it. It's all good. Okay, so Liquid made it through 4-3. So do Nouns, 1 win, and OG. So the two teams that were out of Swiss in first also go through to uppers, and then 1 win goes through to uppers, who were also one of the teams that were 3-1. And then the surprise here, if you will, is that Nouns actually bump it up a bit because they were 3-2 in the first Swiss. So they make it through. Boom, Shopify, Execration, and Beast Coast start in the lowers. And then, I'm not going to go through every series here. I guess we should look at the big stories. So let's focus on top 3. So Liquid have to beat OG in the uppers, which they do. They beat them 2-1. And now they're already... This is obviously a short bracket, right? Because it's 8 teams in double limb, and 4 of them start in lowers. So you win 2 series in uppers, and you're in the grand finals. And that's what Liquid did. They beat OG 2-1, and then they 2-0'd 1 win, who grabbed a victory against Nouns 2-1. So Liquid are in another grand final. Would you believe it? That seems to happen a lot. And they eventually find their... Oh, excuse... It doesn't work, Shannon. I can't talk today. I can't read.
What's the problem?
They lost to 1 win 2-0, Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 win goes to the upper or the grand finals.
Oh, did you?
The short
Okay.
route.
Yeah.
I
didn't hear that you said that they won. But sure.
I don't know what's going on today. Liquid make it through the lowers by beating Boom, who beat Execration.
Well, also you should mention that Liquid did not have to face OG because they lost to Execration.
Yes,
like OG goes out pretty early, which is I found really surprising.
I mean, Liquid already faced OG, right? They beat them in the upper round 1.
Yeah.
But you're right, it could have easily been a rematch later down the line after Liquid lost to 1 win, who beat Nouns. Okay, so we got the rest right. I genuinely don't know how that happened. Whatever. So the Liquid 1 win was the upper finals, and that is also the repeat grand finals, because Liquid do make it against Boom in the lower bracket final. And this is... Okay. Liquid has lost like 10 grand finals in a row, right?
Yeah.
And they go up against 1 win, who 2-0'd them in uppers pretty convincingly. And then we have a grand finals where they swap games literally every step of the way. So Liquid win game 1, 1 win wins game 2. Liquid win game 3, 1 win wins game 4. And guess what? Liquid, they did it, Shannon.
They finally done it.
They did it. It just needed to not be Game & Gladiators. Well, that's probably about half of their finals losses or more. But 1 win really made them work for it.
They just needed to not be with Blitz, because I think Blitz was not there with them for the first time.
Finally,
the competition at this tournament, to be fair, was much lower than a lot of these other tournaments that they've actually made the finals and gotten second. So
absolutely. So yeah, you could argue that it comes with an asterisk, but the way I see it, a win is a win, and the guys have worked really hard to finally get a LAN victory. So, and also worth noting, 1 win, first of all, they beat them 2-0 in the uppers, but also this team we've talked about previously, which tournament was it they were unable to go to because of the visa delay? It was Birmingham, right?
Yeah, I think
where they didn't get to show what they've got. They qualified, and then ultimately they had to get replaced by OG in that tournament. And it feels like every tournament 1 win shows up to, they have a pretty good showing at the bare minimum. And this is obviously very good getting to a finals. So this is like the next generation of Eastern Europe talent that is just showing a lot of promise. So I think, like I've said before, this is a team to watch out for. So... Not really surprised when I see the bracket run out that they got second, but let's remember who they beat, right? They beat OG in terms of placement. So they beat out OG in terms of placement. They beat out Boom in terms of placement. They beat out Nouns in terms of placement. I guess those were the biggest competitors to them. And Shopify, depending on how you would have expected with their new team. So, there's some names in there that they overtook.
Yep.
So not bad.
Yep, they looked good.
Okay, on to the next. We had two tournaments. We had two tournaments conclude at the same day. So these really overlapped a lot. So if you were a Dota enjoyer, there were tons of games to watch. Obviously, we were talking about the Snow Ruyi, if that's how you pronounce it. Maybe I said it wrong. Tournament in China.
Clavision.
Excuse me? That's the organizer.
Clavision Snow Ruyi. I don't know.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Snow Ruyi. Sorry if I butchered it. Anyway, okay, there's a different big story in this one. We'll get to that. So this one had two groups. It didn't do Swiss, just standard groups for placement, round robin. Group A has Spirit, Navi, and LGD take top 3, and VP and Team 0 get 4th, 5th. Nobody's eliminated. This is for seeding into double elim. And Group B has G2IG, Nigma, Extreme take top 3. That's right, Nigma took top 3. And then Azure and Talon in the bottom 2. And that brings us into the bracket with, let's see here. Okay, I'm just trying to do the math right here. What am I missing? Yeah, so the number 1 top team from each group skip a round. This is a pretty unusual format, by the way. Because we have 10 teams, I was thinking, okay, how is it exactly that they did the bracket? And, well, when you have 10 teams, usually you have like a multiple of 4, right? So that teams can get knocked out and then knocked out.
I think this is cooler than just having a group stage where somebody gets eliminated. Just have them face each other in a first round. I think that's much more enjoyable for a viewer.
This is like an interesting take when you have this number of teams to let a team skip around in the uppers, right? So Spirit, by getting first in Group A, and G2IG by getting first in Group B, effectively start in the upper semis. So they're already top 6. And then they have to play against the winners of the other upper bracket teams when they have faced each other. So, yeah, it's kind of cool. And it's a good way to separate first from second, right? I feel like in a lot of tournaments, it doesn't maybe necessarily mean enough in group stages. Like, you're just like, okay, as long as we get upper bracket, right? Or as long as we get... Yeah, upper bracket usually is the threshold that most teams are like satisfied with, because then the quote-unquote real games start, right? But this way you make the stellar performance in group stage even more meaningful. So I think that's kind of cool. Okay. So yeah, as mentioned, Spirit and IG are a round further, and that means Talon will play VP and knock them out. Azure knock out Team 0. Obviously, this tournament had quite a lot of Chinese teams, half of them, as a matter of fact. 5 Chinese teams, but, you know, it's a local tournament, so makes sense. And round 1 of the uppers, LGD take down Nigma 2-1, and Extreme take down Navi 2-1. And then you're like, okay, so Nigma had a good group stage. Is this where it's just going to end again with a subpar result like we've got used to for a very long time? But they start to go on a bit of a tear, Shannon. They 2-1 Talon as Navi 2-1's Azure. So Nigma goes another round. They 2-1 G2IG, who, mind you, were first seed from Group B, the same group they were from. They did actually have the same score as them in the groups, but, you know, G2IG got the first seed. They 2-1 them. Navi then 2-0's LGD. So the Western team's looking pretty good here. They're getting 3 of the top 4 placements in a tournament with 5 Chinese teams out of 10.
Man, what happened to Azure, man? My goodness.
Yeah. I really like their team, but they have not been looking good lately. That's very true. So then Navi have to play against Nigma. Nigma 2-0's them. So Nigma, top 3 at a LAN. It feels like, I don't know. Am I exaggerating if I say this is 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Maybe more.
I think.
Have they gotten top 3 at a LAN ever? As Nigma, the org?
Yes, they have. Yeah, for sure.
Liquid, I feel like it's been, I mean, maybe I'm just recency bias. It feels like nothing but disappointment since they've been in that org.
Yeah, they were Liquid until 2018 or 19, right?
Something like that.
If I remember correctly. Yeah. Anyway, Yeah, and we should mention about Nigma as well. Obviously, this tournament, they had a 1J stand-in for Kuro, and then GH was playing 5. And they also had Ghost as carry, who used to, I believe, play for Nigma for a little while. He's back playing there, and I mean, this worked, right? For whatever reason, whether it was, I will say, I know why you're laughing, but I'll say Nigma as a team have always been a lot better on LAN than online.
They just have to get to the LAN.
That's the problem. The few LANs that they've got to play in the last couple of years, they've performed admirably. They've always showed up and even taken series off of teams that are on power rankings significantly better. But online, it's just not the same. So this is a LAN team. And yeah, the mix-up of players, sometimes that really helps. Sometimes it doesn't. This time it did.
Okay, to be fair, Cinder, you say this is a LAN team. The last time they were at a LAN as Nigma, GH was the only person from this current roster that was at that LAN. Sumail definitely wasn't on Nigma back in the day, and the other 3 definitely were never part of this org. Like,
are you positive GH and Sumail didn't play a LAN together?
On Nigma.
Yeah?
Okay, I can't say 100%, but
maybe you're right.
Sumail, he was on their team briefly and then left, and then he's back again this time, right? They definitely haven't been to a LAN in this. I don't think so, but maybe somebody will correct us. Either way, yeah, it's good to see them top 3. The meme will stay alive at Kuro, I guess. But Spirit do take them out finally in the lower bracket finals.
Yeah. So Spirit have, in the meantime, beaten LGD in the uppers, and Extreme have beaten G2IG, and then Extreme 2-0 Spirit, which, this is a bit of a grudge match, right? These two teams have played some very important games against each other, obviously, and it's generally Spirit that wins the bigger ones, but Extreme win the uppers 2-0 and knock Spirit down to play against Nigma, like you said. Nigma get 2-1'd in that series, and then finally the grand finals. Extreme Gaming beat Team Spirit. I believe that is the second time this year that Extreme beat Spirit in the finals, if I'm not mistaken, but I am drawing blanks. I don't know if that's what it's called. Anyway.
Yeah, they did. It was a 3. I think it was a 3-2 grand finals.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was against Spirit, but it could have been.
I'm just forgetting which tournament it was. But yeah, Extreme are looking really good.
I think they beat Falcons. That's the one Falcons finals.
Was it Falcons?
That's the way I remember it. It's everything melts together though.
All right.
I believe so.
Either way, Extreme take it on home turf in front of Spirit, Nigma, and Navi. So well done to them. Another win in the books for Extreme. They're having a pretty good year, and obviously this is a good time to really get into shape. You could say it's even better to do it in 3 weeks, but obviously leading into what is a TI starting in less than a month, this is a good time to heat up. So good showing from them.
Good job, everybody.
I believe, as an asterisk on both of these tournaments, I believe 737 dropped in the middle of both of them, right?
Well, yeah.
Because the patch dropped Wednesday the 31st, right? Of July. It was the night before last episode. So yeah, it would have been in the middle, smack bang in the middle of both tournaments, pretty much. You can always say, okay, how much did that change the outcome? Ultimately, I don't think that much, because a lot of the teams that were doing well early in the tournament also ended up doing well in the end. So probably just adapted well and got it done. So that's that. Those two tournaments, Shannon. I don't think we have anything big on the docket until TI now, because usually you keep things relatively clear as an organizer in the lead-in month. So let's see. I'm just making sure I'm not talking out of my ass here. There's one Tier 2 tournament coming up with Fissure, which actually does have... I take it back. There are better... This is an online tournament with only 8 teams, and it's probably it looks like it's a relatively short format with 2 groups of 4 into a single elim. So, into a double elim, but a very short double elim, because only 4 teams advance. But that one will have Spirit, Betboom, Gaming, Falcons, Tundra, and Cloud9. Yeah, it's some big names in this. I guess
Who did Cloud9 pick up again?
Cloud9 is the team with what's it called? Entity.
Oh, right.
So this is honestly an all-star tournament.
Yeah, that's
week before TI Online. This is very unusual.
Yeah, that's weird. They must be getting paid a shit ton of money to attend or to play.
Yeah, the prize money isn't that significant either. So
man, must be nice to be a fucking player these days. Holy shit, getting paid to play a fucking tournament.
It's the years old argument of, is it better to not play right before a big tournament, or is it better to play? Because yes, opponents get tape on you, but you also get experience, and you're warmed up for the big one. It's going to be interesting to see, because some of the contenders for a top 3 at TI are in this tournament. Multiple of them. Spirit, BetBoom, Gaimin, and Falcons are all teams that could take top 3. Tundra could as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say Entity quite a bit less likely as a top 3 contender, but not impossible. So this might be a little bit of a preview.
If you're a team, like my strategy as a team manager or something would be, you play this because you're getting paid probably to play anyway, and you just play loose. You don't take it that seriously, but it's good practice still. Treat it as a scrim, but maybe don't show everything that you want to show. That's how I would probably approach it. Because if you just play like it's very important, I think that's actually, there's some negatives to it. I'm not saying it's all bad, but
I guess, is there also enough of a gap, right? It's a week and a half before TI starts that this tournament ends. So even if you have shown some stuff, I feel like it's still recent enough that teams can take advantage of it. Even if you adjust, it's still, you're unlikely to be able to just wipe that off completely. So, but yeah, that's really interesting and very surprising. I would say I can't remember the last time this caliber of teams played a week before TI in literally anything, even 3 weeks before.
Yeah, so it's pretty shocking.
Quite unusual. But yeah, that's coming up. That starts on the 21st, so that's in 2 weeks' time. We can start talking about that.
Very nice.
And like I said, get a really interesting preview of the power rankings heading into TI, right? Because these are a lot of the really big teams. We're still missing 2 contenders. It's 8 teams. I mentioned 6. That's because there's a play-in stage where 2 teams will qualify, and they are unknown. So we'll see that later on. Cool. Yeah, that's Pro Dota for today.
All right.
That's quite a lot.
Yep, I think we'll spend a little bit of time talking about this latest patch and how it's affected the win rates of the facets for heroes. And we can kind of pick and choose what we want to talk about, what we find interesting. Right now, Tinker has the highest win rate. I don't have the change thing activated because I didn't select last month or anything, but I think we're just going to stick to patch 7.37. Does anything surprise you that's on this list, Cinderman?
I mean, it's hard not to be surprised by Tinker becoming one of the best supports in Dota, right? Like, that's just... It just feels so weird to say out loud that Tinker is now an S-tier support, but with the repair bots getting as good as it has, they already made it good. You could argue it was already good, and now they made it a lot better. And now teams are finally starting to pick it up. And it was actually played in the grand finals by Jinkyu against Team Spirit as an example, and they won that game, and he owned. So this is weird. I feel like this is actually going to this is one of the few things that I expect to get nerfed before TI. I know it's only 3 weeks away, but there will be a B patch. I don't have this on, how to say, or an A patch rather. Sorry, we always call it A first. There's definitely going to be an A patch, probably a B patch too.
Probably a B and maybe a C. C is there's not going to be more than C.
Yeah, definitely not more than 3 balance patches. I would guess 2, and I think Tinker gets nerfed in A. Because this is just overtuned, and it's what often happens is you put something different and new in the game. Players are a little bit hesitant maybe to really commit to it. Then you buff it more, excuse me, and then it reaches a point of critical mass where it's just like, okay, what the fuck is this, right? So he's just too good. It's that simple. So that will absolutely get nerfed.
I'm going to change the rank tier. I haven't selected at all because I do find that interesting, but since we're getting close to TI, I'll just switch to the Immortal bracket only. Obviously still Tinker.
For sure.
But the rest have changed drastically. Anything else?
You want to focus on Facet specifically, right?
Well, I think the heroes that have high win rates with Facets, like Omni Knight, I find interesting. I don't know what his win rate was before. I mean, he's not picked that much. I guess it's under 2% still, but still, this is a pretty damn high win rate for a hero that's been kind of non-existent.
Yeah.
Oracle.
And he was a big question mark, right? When we did the patch breakdown last episode, there was just so much happening with Omni at once. Like, they've changed him a ton, and it was hard to really gauge, okay, how good is this going to be? It seems that especially the AoE Guardian Angel, instead of the 2 charges on individual heroes, the 400 radius one makes a really big difference.
Oh, who would have thought?
I mean, it depends, right? Because you could argue it's not always better, right?
It's not always better, but I think on average, I mean, clearly most people would agree that should be better.
On average, it should be better, and obviously this is averages, right? So, yeah, it makes sense that he got a lot better. I was not expecting a 7% win rate increase, I'll tell you that much. So that surprised me a lot. But it isn't really tied to his facet, because the facet that has the highest win rate, I believe, is the healing hammer one, obviously, because the other one's Degen Aura. And this one is the least bad. Honestly, neither of his facets are very good.
Apparently doesn't need it.
Yeah, he's about the spells.
Any other heroes towards the top? Because I want to talk about top and I want to talk about bottom.
Anything really surprising here? I mean, one-man army's still there. Axe has still got a very high win rate with that one, but that's the same as last patch, right?
That's gotten nerfed like 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah. But he's still high up there.
Lycan, is this the new facet?
And it's also
which one was it? Pack leader? Alpha Wolves, I think is the new one. Yeah.
He's down there. Okay, he's in like 12th, I think. So, but the thing about these is that it's a bit difficult to separate how much of this is facet changes and how much is just the hero getting buffed and other heroes getting nerfed, right? Because all the things happen at once. So in a lot of cases, like it looks like, wow, Ember's win rate is insane with double impact, but it's just because Ember's better, right? Ursa's win rate is really high, but his facet didn't get changed. So,
well, for an example, Ember Spirit with the he's in second. The double impact facet has a 52% win rate. Actually, it showed higher. I don't know what the difference is. When you click on it, it shows the difference between the facets, but then it's just a lower amount. This must be for the last week as opposed to this patch specifically, which it's been a week though, so that's why this doesn't add up.
But yeah, this one was a bit puzzling for me when we went over the patch that Ember got buffed. I mean, I love the hero. I think he's fun to watch as well. But I don't really know if he needed anything compared to a lot of other heroes that didn't get any love. Especially, he's also been recently, quite prevalent in pro. So he's going to remain there unless they change him. What else is really standing out? I mean, Ursa is top 6 with 2 different facets. That's very special. Because like for every other hero, there's one facet that's scoring really high, and then the second one is way further down the list. But this again just goes to show Ursa's just a good hero, right? In pubs at least. So he's getting, whether you take one or the other, essentially, you could argue that this is how it should be with facets, that they should be close together in win rate. But I also think it's not necessarily a problem that they are relatively far apart, and one of them is more situational than the other. Then you just need to know when to take it, right? And if you take it the wrong time, your win rate's probably 45 or worse.
Right.
So,
okay, let's go to the bottom of the list then.
Oh boy.
Which I guess I'll just click on this.
Who sucks? Oh dear.
Chen. Wow.
Well, he has a 27% win rate. What number under 50 hits that? Let's see.
To be fair, the pick rate is 0.01%.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so let's see.
I mean, this is
pretty close to 13 divided by 50. It's close.
When you click on it, the win rates are totally different, and they're all in the 40s. They're still dog shit, all of them. And it says this is the facets for the last week or this week, which I guess this week could mean many things. Usually it just means past 7 days, but it could just mean the past few days that the week has started.
With these low pick rates, I think it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, completely irrelevant.
I think the first one that you can consider is the PL one with 0.67, because like at least it's prevalent in
both
one of
his
200 games.
Does he have 3 or 2? Facets. He has two, and they're both low win rate.
They're both 40%. But that doesn't mean the Facet's bad. It's just the hero isn't good.
Yeah.
He got a pretty significant, rework, right? Where the damage of your abilities, the plus damage of your inventory now also works on illusions, but it came at a pretty significant cost. And we were theorizing, all right, is that going to be good in late game or whatever? It seems like it absolutely sucks. So, it's what it is. Let's see, anything else stand out? Oh yeah. Remember last episode when we were talking about Huskar's max health burn incendiary facet? Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if this is good. And then someone in your chat was like, this is the highest win rate facet.
Yeah.
It's 9th lowest in Immortal. So maybe that was just extremely short or small sample size.
I mean, for all we know, it was also bugged for the day as well.
That could have been it, or the person was looking at all brackets and not just Immortal, or whatever.
Or just Herald, yeah. True.
Yeah, or that. Let's see where it is in Herald. Now I'm curious.
Huskar probably has a decent win rate in Herald, I would think.
Hang on, where's Huskar here? Okay, in Herald it's 45% win rate. It's much better, but still bad. Anyway.
So I want to see
nothing really surprising here, though, right?
The one that I want to see, I'm just gonna sort it by win rate, is Death Prophet. The new tanky one. It's not Spirit Collector. Okay, this is way down there. Morning Ritual. It's considered C. That shocks me. This makes me question my game design.
But it's knowledge. C because of the hero's win rate, right? You could argue this is an S facet because of how much higher her win rate is with it over the other one. It's 4% higher than Suppress, which is the one that pros were taking last patch.
True. But then Spirit Collector has 50% win rate, but it's very small pick rate. Very, very small.
Yeah. The Morning Ritual one's 2.6. And it's also worth keeping in mind when there's a little bit of a... I don't know how much I want to read into this, but you can imagine when something like this drastic change comes out, that a lot of people will want to try to play DP in multiple different roles, and they might not be the best players on the hero. Because it just sounds that busted, you're like, all right, I'm going to play DP. I'm going to pick Morning Ritual. I'm just going to, do my thing. And then a win rate of 48% is not necessarily indicative of how good this is. I still personally think this is an S tier facet. I really do. Even if the win rates don't say it right now. But we'll see with more sample, and we'll see especially in Pro. Because I think some of the teams that play DP well are going to utilize this really, really sick in some strats. So I still think it's something. It's something to look out for over time.
Okay, just a quick glance at some of the facets and the hero win rates and whatnot. So
what really changed, actually, in conclusion, like the big ones?
Well, the problem is I can't sort it that way while choosing patch 7.37, but if I say in the last 7 days, which I think is close enough, right?
Right.
The biggest change would be Tinker Repair Bots. We talked about that.
Yep.
Then a huge jump down to Ember Spirit Double Impact. Other than that, it seems to be mostly the same. And then when we get to the bottom, nobody got dumpstered. Like the biggest discrepancy in terms of the negative aspect is Tiny Crash Landing. Only a 1.26% difference, which to me... If nothing else, that's shocking because I feel like that thing got dumpstered. If you just read the patch notes, they fixed the bug.
They got hit hard
in some ways, right? The not going through Magic Community or whatever, and nerfed in several ways. I'm very surprised that it was a more drastic.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it could have also. I was expecting him to fall off harder than this as well. I would agree with that, but I think it's good if the hero is still. There's some heroes that you're kind of sick of seeing maybe or whatever. I think Tiny is always really entertaining at a pro level to see because it's super high skill cap and he makes moments in the game that are really enjoyable. Wish I could say the same for Tinker, but I don't think so. At least not this version of Tinker. The old Tinker, I think, made some pretty memorable moments. This one, I don't know about.
Yeah.
I guess it's memorable for a little bit, and then people will get sick of it, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess one more thing. If you want to see a little bit of a pattern here, if you look at the high tier heroes in win rates, there's a lot of healing. So I think this might be something to keep an eye out for. Tinker has a heal, Omni has a heal, Treant, and Wyvern. All 4 of these are in the top 6 win rates in Immortal bracket. That probably says something. And then Oracle is also in the top 10.
Oh, boy.
And Abaddon follows right after.
Auras plus
are
healing.
We reaching a healing meta on a grander scale here than just...
You know what hero
Tinker's
loves that, Cinderin?
About, but...
You even see Morphling on here. Where's Ancient Apparition? Truly a great hero. A C-tier hero, according to this.
Well, Ancient Apparition has a 50% win rate, which is high for AA.
That's true.
True. You're right. And let's see, Alchemist, 52. Also quite high for Alch, I would say. So, yeah, I'll be keeping an eye out for this. Obviously, the big showcase we will get, we'll see about patches and whatnot, but let's say it was this version. I think the tournament coming up in 10 days would be very interesting to see whether the
heals... Or very not interesting if it's heals. That sounds awful. Holy crap.
There's counters.
Yeah, but if every game is... man, I can't think of a more boring meta than Aura/healing. We'll see how it goes, I suppose.
Let's go gaming gladiators. Where's Io on this? Why is Io so far down?
I'm sure he'll get buffed.
Io was 52 and 52.5. That's also high for Io. So yeah. Is there a hero with a heal that's under 50?
Death Prophet, we mentioned.
Chen is over 50.
Dawnbreaker? She's at 50.
Yeah.
Oracle's 51. Yeah. That would be interesting. Okay, let's move on. So next on the list is... wanted to talk about some non-Dota related stuff. There's a game that was announced called Spectre Divide. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because this is a game that, or a company, I don't know how much involvement he's actually had, but Shroud, this is Shroud's game. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
It's a first-person shooter. I'm just going to play some of the gameplay here. It's a 3v3 tactical first-person shooter. So I'm going to explain kind of how it works. And then my impressions just from watching him play it, and then because he has been playing on a stream, and I believe it's going to be free to play, but it's something that you can sign up for on the Steam page. So think of Counter-Strike/Valorant. It's actually more like Valorant because you do have these abilities that the heroes that you're choosing or whatever they're called have. Okay. And it's 3 versus 3, like I said, except everybody has a second body that they can control. So you can obviously only control one hero at a time, but then you have a puck, they call it, that you can throw, and then you can teleport to that puck, and then you become that character, and the other character just sits there where you left them. So
wait, what do you mean? It's just like a ragdoll, or what?
What do you mean a ragdoll?
You teleport and become the other character, and then your old one is just this like soulless body just standing
the other one just
what?
Like sits there and just waits. So you want to put it in a corner, or you can put it up high. Like you can actually teleport onto like high ground.
That sounds really weird.
So think of this. I think this is the reason they probably want to do it, other than just the fact that they want to differentiate. Think of it like this. So let's say you have a flash. A lot of times in Counter-Strike, you want somebody to flash for you and you peek. You can just do that yourself now. You flash, teleport to your unit. As long as you set up correctly, you can peek off your own flash. So that's interesting. It's bomb defusal. They call it the Zeus, though, instead of the bomb or the spike like Valorant does.
So they literally chose the name of a weapon from CS as the name of the bomb.
That is correct.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, and all possible, there are not enough words in the language that you could have picked from. You had to pick that one.
It is weird. The art style, I am not a fan of. So the terrain, like basically all the surroundings, I think looks fine. It looks on the side of Valorant, I guess. Maybe a little bit more realistic, maybe. And then the characters are just full on cell shader. Is that what it's called?
That's what it's called. I was just going to ask you, what was it called? The thing we had in Dota for the... Diretide event.
It's just a personal preference. I have despised this art style forever. Like Borderlands, I could just Not that I would like the game anyway, but I just hate this art style. That's just a personal thing. But they're trying to, advertise it as this kind of cross between Counter-Strike and Valorant, and has this new element of having this, they call it the Spectre, which is the ghost or whatever. By watching it feels more like it's like a Rainbow Six type thing instead of like a Counter-Strike to me. Okay. So I don't know how many people will actually come over from those games, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk about because I was looking forward to see. Like, I didn't know anything about it, but just not another, but like a big streamer getting into video game design. I can kind of, see some similarities with that, and then obviously Dr. Disrespect, rip with what happened to him, of course. But he was also doing the same thing with his game, so just something that I've been following. But by watching it, personally, I don't think this is a game that I will enjoy. Do you have any thoughts based on the concept?
I find I don't. This isn't a big part of the game by any means. It just seems weird to have the characters be cel shaded and then everything else not be, right? It just looks kind of out of place, almost like it makes it look like a placeholder until they have the real models, But maybe they're going for this look because they feel like it fits the whole like Spectre theme, that it's a bit more like ghost like or whatever to have them be like cells. But I feel like it would look better if it was just uniform, personally, just from first glance. Can't speak to the gameplay. I haven't tried the game at all. This is the first time I see it at all. So, but I mean, ultimately, if you're quote unquote challenging the big shooter games by making something similar, what's your selling point except the ghost? And is that actually enough?
Well, the ghost thing does look like it makes the thing quite different. Quite different. I think, just from, again, personal preference, I'm a Counter-Strike guy. And I tried playing Valorant for a year, and there was parts of it I really liked, and then as they added more and more characters, the abilities just became, like, they just power crept everything. And the abilities were something I never really liked to begin with. So trying to get people from Counter-Strike for this would be difficult because, again, you have the abilities, but also you have to... So, do you know what ADSing is?
No. Or aim down sight?
Aim down sight. So, like, looking down the reticle, it's basically required to shoot. Otherwise, it's not accurate. So that in and of itself is not Counter-Strike to me. That is like Call of Duty, I guess.
Yeah.
Or again, like I've never played Rainbow Six, but from what I've seen, I think it's the same. So just not my style of a game. But it'll be interesting to see how much this game, like what kind of reception they're gonna have, because there's one side of how good the game is, which there's no real way to know until people have played it, but also how much of a difference can a name like Shroud make?
That's the biggest thing.
I know that they had a shit ton of people sign up for the beta, but once the game comes out and then you get to see actual reviews, we'll see. So in that aspect, I'm just very intrigued to see what happens. But
yeah, it is, to me, that's also the most interesting part, is seeing how this separate from other similar situations where you add in one of the biggest streamers to the mix. Right, because you could imagine this could have been an indie game as well, right? That some studio could have made, or maybe indie is a bit. Let's just say that, like, it looks like it's a relatively small studio that probably made this, right? If I'm not mistaken. I don't know how. I don't recognize the name of the
Mountaintop Studios. Yeah, I don't know how big they are, but I would guess indie.
But yeah, let's just call it indie. A lot of indie games are not necessarily lost to the void, but probably don't get the attention they deserve because sometimes it's about reaching people, right?
Yeah.
You have games like, let's say, Among Us, which was on Steam for quite a long time, and then suddenly one or two big YouTubers pick it up and it spreads like absolute wildfire and becomes a huge success. But if those people hadn't found that game, nobody would have known about it, right? And then you have this game where you know for a fact that it will have that kind of streamer backing to have the potential of reaching, because it's not only Shroud. When Shroud has this game and he's running it, he will have collabs with other big streamers. So the reach is going to be massive.
Yeah, their main video that they used to just talk about, like, because it's the first time they've really talked about it, it was forget who the third person was, but he was playing with Tarek, who's a big streamer in Valorant.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, he can bring all the big names. So I think one thing that I was interested in, just as a game designer and like a personality or whatever the fuck you want to call it, was how much Shroud was involved with the game itself, right? Because I didn't really follow Dr. Disrespect that much, but of course, since the game he was making was a battle royale, it didn't interest me at all. But I know that he used to be in game design, like he used to make levels for Call of Duty, right? So that's the thing that he was. That's why his like production value was so good, because he can actually literally design like his space himself. And from Shroud, I didn't have any idea what kind of involvement he had, but I was watching him today, and this is just my take on what I was seeing. He was with a dev, and they were just going over stuff, and he was asking a lot of questions to the dev, which disappointed me a bit because I was hoping he'd be a lot more involved. But it sounded like it wasn't like he was not involved at all, because he did mention a few things that like he was involved in meetings and whatnot. So he didn't just slap his name on it, but he also wasn't like what I am, which is fucking no-lifing the design of the game itself. It's somewhere in between, I guess. So I don't know. It should be interesting to see what happens with this one.
I think it might be. It's like, I think a lot of the times, if you have a game studio team up with an ex-pro of a game, that pro will probably start out as counsel, right? Because I can't say if he has any design or programming experience. I don't know. Most professional players don't, because they committed those years of their life to getting really good at the game rather than learning another skill in university or whatever. So most of the time what they can bring to the table is an extremely valuable insight into the feel of the game. Like, what are the devs actually accomplishing what they're trying? Because it's like really valuable to have someone extremely good at something say whether they enjoy and whether the devs are meeting their goals, right? So when I heard this, that's what I thought he was going to be, honestly. And it sounds like that's the case, right? So I wasn't expecting him to be developing a lot, but just to be like a counsel, effectively.
Yeah, effectively.
And then if you like it, maybe you can take the step, you know? But
I'm sure he has, I mean, obviously he's going to have part ownership of the company and all that. So it's not just, Yeah, so I mean, it's cool. It's not my kind of game for sure, but just based on watching the gameplay, but hopefully it succeeds.
Yep.
And last but not least, this is a video by Tyler McVicker, everyone's favorite Valve leaker or whatever you want to call it. I remember I didn't really have the greatest impression of him during the Artifact days, because he leaked stuff from Artifact after devs literally told him straight up, please don't leak it. I can't remember the exact circumstances, but anyway, this video is, I can just play in the background. There's not actually any footage here, but he was going through code as he always does. And this is something he is good at, is data mining and all that. And he found some discrepancies. So remember we talked about Citadel and all these things that we ended up saying, okay, all these files that he found end up being deadlock. Right? So Citadel became Neon Prime, which became Deadlock in the end. Apparently, Citadel, there's a bunch of stuff that are not in Deadlock. So Citadel is something else now. I believe the code name is it White Sands or something like that? Which doesn't mean anything. The code names that Valve use are absolutely random. But he is very confident. And this is coming from somebody that I know that he would not say this lightly, because he'll get shit on, because this has happened in the past. But it does sound a lot like they're making Half-Life 3, Cinderin. It sounds a lot like it.
It has sounded like that for a long time, hasn't it? I remember last year when it sounded like they were making Half-Life.
Well, it was Half-Life Alyx, right? Which he's showing on the screen. This was Half-Life Alyx launch. But yeah, according to the things he's found, he's quite confident that it will be Half-Life 3. So, first of all, I think it would be hilarious, just fucking hilarious, if Half-Life 3 is on Source 3. Let's say it comes out next year, Counter-Strike 2 just got on Source 2 after all that time and immediately becomes obsolete with Source 3. But yeah, I would love to see Half-Life 3. It's funny that we talk about this game and there's probably a bunch of people that are in Dota or in just the gaming industry in general that have never even played the game because it's so old now. Which makes us really fucking ancient in the end.
Yeah. Well, my thing with this, okay, let's entertain the idea it's real, okay? Let's entertain the idea Half-Life 3 comes out. How the hell does Valve deliver on this game? I think the expectations and the memes around this title that never got released makes it, I would say it's borderline impossible to impress, actually. Which makes it a really difficult challenge if they are to release this game. Like, think about it. There has never been a more hyped game that didn't come out than this one, right? And it's not that they announced it. There's been games that were hyped and then didn't come out. This was a game that was never announced, but is mega hyped. It's like super weird. And the fan base of this franchise is extremely passionate about Half-Life, right? It's a very iconic game. Half-Life 2 was also a major success. So, like, I'm just thinking, part of me thought that a big reason why Valve didn't make Half-Life 3 was that it was, quote-unquote, almost impossible to make the game good enough for what people are expecting. So if they are going for it now, what does that signal, is what I'm thinking. Like, let's say it's real. Does that signal that Valve are hard committed now because their previous titles haven't hit? You know, they've had a couple of releases that weren't successful, so now they're going for the one that they know a lot of people will really care about and will really want to play, and then it's kind of a YOLO, hope it gets good enough, or is it genuinely that they have been working on something like this for a very long time to make it really good? Like, I don't know, this is pure speculation, but if this is real, this is probably going to be the most exciting,
the most anticipated game of all time.
Yeah,
possibly.
Arguably, right?
GTA is up there, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's a few, but we've been waiting longer for Half-Life 3 than anything else. But for sure.
But have we, right? Because it's never been announced. Like, GTA has been announced, so it's like there's a difference. But
generally, when there's a big game that's a success, there will be another game. When's the last time? Maybe there's going to be an example, probably, but when's the last time there was a fucking enormous success that they didn't make another game later? That has been over like 10 years. I'd have to think about it.
Yeah, if you put me on the spot like that, that's not that easy.
So, but yeah, I agree that it's going to be... I think from a single player standpoint, they can definitely do it. I think they probably got some really good feedback about Half-Life Alyx. Gives them an idea. I mean, obviously it's not going to be in VR, but it still gives
them... that.
I hope not, at least. Jesus Christ.
It could be compatible. It could be both.
Sure. I definitely think they can deliver on the single-player aspect. The question is, what kind of technology is it going to use? Is it going to be Source 3? Is it going to breed other games that are based off of that engine? And that's what makes Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2 so special. So many games came out of so it's a single-player game. It's like you play it for a week, you're done. It's not about the single player, in my opinion. That's a great aspect to it. It's about everything else that follows. So mod support, all that shit, basically everything they're not doing in the arcade right now in Dota, they've done in the past for FPS games, or Half-Life games specifically. Literally like all their franchises.
So what spawned from Source 2?
Well, I mean, Counter-Strike... It didn't get created in Source 2, but it was the next evolution, right? Because that was CS 1.6 to Source and then eventually to Go.
But wasn't all of that in Source 1?
So, yes.
So I'm just asking, what was the thing that Half-Life 2 spawned? Maybe I'm just ignorant here. Like, I'm just trying to think, what did that bring with it?
I don't know if they...
as
far as like a new game, probably nothing. Now that I think about it, yeah, that's true. That's a good point. So something that that Half-Life 2 did kind of, you can actually see it in this video, is like physics were a big thing. This was like at the time very new, and my video stopped. Very new and innovative. So the question is, what is something they're going to add to this, right? Because they did VR, they've done the physics shit.
Mm-hmm.
They've always been good at story. That's one thing Valve is always good at, is story. They always deliver with that shit when it comes to the Half-Life series. But yeah, I don't know. Cinderman. Yeah, was Half-Life 2 Source 1? I don't remember now. Yeah, it must have been, because Dota 2 was originally Source 1. That's true. Half-Life 2 was not even Source 2.
So that was Source 1 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Half-Life 3 presumably would be on Source 2 unless they, again, innovate something past that point.
So, okay, how much do you think he's grasping at straws, and how much, like, do you believe this?
I mean, obviously there's going to be some level of, I don't even know what the word would be. I was going to say apathy. That's not the word. Just hearing about this over and over and over. I don't know. I'd say it sounds promising. Honestly, it does sound promising, because there's a lot of stuff in the files that obviously are not related at all to Deadlock based on what we've seen from the videos that were leaked. Mm-hmm. So it does sound like they're working on something that uses HEV suit. Like, what else the fuck uses HEV suit than Gordon Freeman, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say it's promising, but don't hold your breath at the same time. I don't know.
Okay.
I just hope it's not another expansion. I would love for this meme to finally have a resolution. Finally, the number 3 can be spoken aloud. Then it goes to 4, right? They've never done a 4th game, so.
Okay, what do you think they can do to impress?
From a Half-Life?
Yeah, just it's the last thing I'll ask about this game, but because we don't know anything, right? But like, if you agree with my take that this needs to be a really big thing because the expectations are so high, what do you think people are even looking for? Like, do they know what they want? Like, what would be really cool about this? Is it amazing modding? Is it a really good single player experience? Do you need both? Does there need to be something revolutionary about it? Like, it's hard to say, oh, they need to come up with this revolutionary thing, because then you need to know what that thing is, right? But
I think it would be really cool.
How can this game deliver?
So, yeah, we can talk about the extracurricular shit that you would need to do to make this a success, like, long term, like, based off like the stuff that I was talking about earlier. But if you just talk about the single player aspect, I think the one thing they can do to impress is to have a resolution to the story of Half-Life.
Okay, so you want this to end the story.
I mean, so when you end the story, you can always, like, start it up through another. I mean, you see it with TV shows all the time, right? So yes, I would like to see what the fuck G-Man is. I want to know this villain. What the fuck is he? Right. That would be something that I think would blow people's minds, because it's not something anyone would be expecting. Like, why would you end a series? Obviously, if it's going to take them 20 plus years to come out with another game, they're not interested in doing that generally. But I don't know.
Well, if it follows a curve with the number of years between each release, Half-Life 4 would be in 100 years.
True.
So then nobody would get to enjoy the end of the story because they weren't around for the beginning.
True. Yes.
So I guess you're going to have to conclude it now.
It did sound like they were going to be on an alien planet, so maybe we get to see Gordon Freeman finally expand his horizons, as it were.
Right.
Okay. I think that'll do it for this episode of We Say Things. We appreciate you, friends. Until next week, SUNSfan Cinderin saying goodbye and Godspeed.
Goodbye.
We say things that don't
remember to subscribe.
Thanks for listening. Yeah.